Welcome back to Real Britain with me, Darren Grimes. Cheers very much for your company. Now, 8 universities, folks, are under investigation for reportedly giving students poor quality degrees. The University Minister has been leading the charge to improve those standards and actually deliver better outcomes for students. So the Minister of State for Universities, I'm delighted to say, Michelle Donelan, joins me now. Michelle, thank you very much for your company.
Good afternoon, Darren. Nice to be here.
Now, the Telegraph are reporting, they're claiming today that Warwick University is decolonising courses in an effort to win a charity award from a Advance HE. But you've actually warned universities against this kind of whackery and wokery, haven't you?
Yeah, indeed. Of course, we have universities are autonomous in our system, which is fantastic. But actually, they're spending a great deal of taxpayers' money, and we need to be sure that that is spent effectively and efficiently. And on this very issue, what I don't want to see happen is academics actually told by bureaucrats how to teach and what to teach, because that's not right. And I think what you're referring to is the affiliation with an organisation called Advanced HE, which is something I've spoken out against and warned universities, has the chief executive of the regulator, the Office for Students, because we need to ensure that nothing really impinges upon free speech and academic freedom as well.
Yeah, it strikes me that the over 9 grand that students are paying, actually, they're just, if you ask me, they're ideological factories of churning out people who leave university somewhere to the left of Chairman Mao. But actually, they're not getting the rewards from the expensive degrees, which would be employment and actually a useful degree at the end of it. Some kids are just suited to other outcomes. And that's a good thing, right? More people in apprenticeships even. We're not seeing that, though. We're seeing more and more kids go through university and they're not right for it. I wasn't right for it, Michelle, right? So why are we not having that discussion? Why do you think there is this drive to push people through university at that massive cost?
Well, first of all, I'd say let's not talk our universities down. We've got 4 out of the world's top 10 universities. We're one of the greatest countries in the world to study in university. But there are some fantastic alternatives, as you point out, apprenticeships, further education. And that's why this government is investing in those alternatives. But we're certainly not obsessed, like the opposition is, the Labour Party, in terms of how many students are getting to university. It's not about that. It's about how many are completing if they go on to university and how many are then going on to get graduate jobs at the end of the day. That's one of the key reasons why people go to university, and we shouldn't be afraid to talk about that. And that's why I've got a relentless focus on quality, so that we can really tackle some of the courses, and it is too many, which are in effect dead-end courses. They don't lead people onto graduate jobs. In fact, completion rates are not even high enough. This is something that this government is committed to tackling. That's why we have now launched investigations working with the regulator. It's why I've asked every university to be fully transparent, so that when a student picks a university, they know, well, what are my chances of getting a graduate job? Am I likely to be able to complete if I do this course? It's why we've relaunched something called TEF, which is a labelling system, and in fact, smacking on a requires improvement, so that it is a fully transparent system. And it's also why I was determined to work with the regulator to ensure that we have thresholds. For the first time ever, universities will have to reach certain percentages of numbers going on to graduate jobs and numbers completing courses.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds good, but Michelle, tell us about this new legislation that seeks to protect freedom of speech on campus, because on this show we've chronicled week in, week out the assault on freedom of expression on campus, where you can't talk about issues, whether that be net zero, you might have a different view to the Prime Minister, certainly, or on the issue of self-identification of your gender, you might actually have a different view to the activists on that issue. How will this bill actually tackle the chilling culture of activists on campus?
Yeah, and it's right, Darren, that you have spoke today about quality, but also now moving on to free speech, because the two are intrinsically linked. If we can't have freedom of expression and free speech amongst our students and our academics on campuses, how are we ever going to create the next generation of innovators, the next generation who will go on and develop and create and move society forward. And we have seen some horrific examples in some of our campuses. If we take, for example, Kathleen Stock and others over the last few years, I think it is undeniable that there is a problem. Yes, we have an A rating for academic freedom in this country. It's not the case that we have a problem across the board in every university, but we do have an issue. There are too many examples of free speech being curtailed. This bill will create a new director who will sit at the regulator, who will be responsible and hold universities to account on this issue and be able to fine them, not just for matters of protecting free speech, but also a failure to promote free speech. So this really will change the culture on our campuses and stamp out this cancel culture that we've seen growing over the last decade in particular.
Your colleague, the Attorney General, Suella Braverman, she has been quite vocal over recent days about her views on issues around the debate. I remember her saying very eloquently that when she was put on maternity leave, and of course you and your colleagues voted through changes, actually the whole House did, voted through changes to the maternity bill to ensure that the Attorney General, as a woman of course, could actually take maternity leave. But she was really, really puzzled, Michelle, by attempts to remove the word woman from a pregnancy. Now, it strikes me, Michelle, that women are the ones who carry children. Novel idea, I know.
Well, of course they are, yeah. I mean, that's slightly an aside issue from freedom of speech on our campuses, but you are right. Women biologically carry children. We do have to have a bit of common sense.
But these are the sorts of debates that you can't have on university these days, right? That is how bad it is getting on campus. As I say, we have people week in, week out saying to me on this show, I'm really scared to actually speak up on campus and say something as fundamental as only a biological woman can carry a child.
Well, and quite right, Darren, that's why we're dealing with it. That's what I've heard similar cases directly from students and also academics, and that's why I'm committed to bringing forward the legislation that will tackle it. We will be resuming in a matter of weeks in the Commons to ensure that our campuses aren't just places where freedom of speech is protected, but actively promoted and encouraged. And that is what this government is doing, honouring its manifesto and tackling this problem head on, which previous governments have avoided.
Yeah, well, on that issue, going back to universities and this particular debate around sex and gender, which is becoming increasingly toxic, I think. But how many of these universities are actually members of Stonewall's diversity champion scheme, which strikes me as an abuse, frankly, of taxpayer cash? And is this actually skewing how the debate around women's rights and gender and the tension there is actually playing out on campus?
Well, look, as I said at the beginning, universities are autonomous. They are free in legislation to make these kind of decisions around affiliation of organisations and membership groups. But I do think they need to think really hard about how that money is spent and whether that will have any ramifications for limiting free speech and what that says to their students and the broader public as well. And of course, as you say, a great deal of their money is taxpayer funded.
What would you actually say to anyone watching this show today whose kids are coming up to university age, who might think, well, I certainly don't want my children to go to university. I'm really worried about everything that we've just been discussing, Michelle. Would you actually advocate that they do think about other options, or are you still unapologetically standing up for British universities and how they're world leading?
So I personally am always standing up for the individual and what's in their best interest. That's at the heart of my politics. That's why I want to put them in the driving seat of their own education. That might be going to university. We are one of the very best countries in the world to go to university. That is undeniable. And we have some issues that this government is tackling head on. But we're also a country which is home to some amazing apprenticeships, a fantastic further education service. We need to get away with this obsession of one size fits all and that the state knows best in terms of people's future. In fact, I believe in people and I back their ability to make a choice. And that's why we want to ensure that when they make that choice, all of those options are high quality and that they lead them to where they want to go, which is fundamental.
So what do you say then to the parents watching who might well be thinking, well, I've just been reading in the paper about how loads of these courses are being held remotely, where students aren't even receiving tutorials in person. actually they're spending over £9,000 to not be taught in person. Do you actually encourage these lecturers and universities to get back to proper in-classroom teaching?
I absolutely do. And this is something that I've been very vocal on, because students deserve better. They're paying £9,250. They're investing a lot of time. And we know poll after poll shows that they want that pre-pandemic type of learning. I've been actively calling up universities that haven't been doing that. The OFS, the regulator, will start investigating those that haven't been doing that. But it is important to say it's now a stubborn minority. We've been working with the sector to get it down to a stubborn minority. But students deserve better than what they're seeing from some of those that are reluctant to get back to pre-pandemic teaching.
A very clear message for universities there. I think my viewers will agree. Minister of State for Universities, Michelle Donelan, thank you very much for your time today.